For a lot of us, a middle-class salary is kind of like a full moon, right? It shows up once a month in all its absolute glory, but then it just slowly fades away, and within 15 days, it is completely gone. And if you need money for the rest of the month, well, you're either dipping into savings or, worse, taking on debt. So today, we are going to completely shatter the illusion that a high salary automatically equals true wealth, and we're going to look at exactly what it takes to master compounding instead of just
Here is the
spending.
roadmap for today's explainer. 1. 3 friends, 3 paths. 2. The trap of EMI. 3. Real estate early bird. 4. The 7-3-2 compounding strategy. 5. The grand reunion reveal. And finally, borrower versus investor mindset. Let's find out who actually achieves financial
All right,
freedom.
Section 1, 3 friends, 3 paths. So to kick things off, we have Shaurya, Rishabh, and Akash. They all moved to Mumbai from Raipur with engineering degrees, big dreams, and this is super important, the exact same baseline. That's crucial because it means their ultimate outcomes are going to be based entirely on their personal financial choices, not on any kind of starting privilege.
It's actually wild how 3 identical starting salaries can head in completely radically different directions based just on day one priorities. I mean, look at this. Shaurya, he wanted the flashy lifestyle. He needed that visible, instant gratification. Rishabh was fascinated by real estate and long-term future growth. And Akash, he was the stock market guy, totally geeking out over systems, savings, and compounding. So let's see how these mindsets actually play out in the real world. Section 2, the trap of EMI. Let's follow Shaurya down the classic middle-class spender trap, which is basically a path where every single pay raise gets instantly swallowed up by brand new lifestyle expenses. Look at how fast these fixed costs escalate. At 23, earning a pretty modest salary, Shaurya immediately rents a really nice apartment near his office for 12,000 rupees a month, mostly just to enjoy the city's party culture. Because, Mumbai rent isn't punishing enough on its own, right? Then by 25, his salary bumps up to 50,000 rupees. Does he save it? Nope. He sees his colleagues buying cars, so he goes out and buys a 9 lakh rupee sedan on EMI, which slaps another 12,000 rupees onto his fixed monthly costs for an asset that is rapidly depreciating. Fast forward 11 years to age 36. His salary has doubled to a massive 1 lakh per month. But because he is so anchored to constantly upgrading his lifestyle, he immediately locks himself into an enormous 90 lakh rupee housing loan just to maintain appearances. Which brings us to this absolutely terrifying number, 70 lakh rupees. Because he couldn't afford that 90 lakh home outright, he put down his meager 20 lakh in savings and took out a 70 lakh rupee loan. That is the massive, heavy debt anchor Shaurya tied around his own neck. At age 36, he literally locked himself into 20 more years of grinding at his job just to pay the bank. He's completely sacrificed his long-term financial freedom just for the illusion of wealth today.
Section 3, real estate early bird. Now, let's contrast Shaurya's path with Rishabh, our tangible asset investor. When Rishabh moved to Mumbai, he definitely didn't rent a flashy apartment. He lived super cheaply in Old Panvel, basically surviving on tea and vada pav, specifically so he could study the upcoming metro development and real estate market in Navi Mumbai.
So the real takeaway here is that Rishabh did his homework. He identified that Navi Mumbai was slated for massive development over the next 10 to 15 years. Back in 2011, he snagged a pre-construction property for just 15 lakh rupees. And yeah, he used parental help to secure the initial capital, which, let's be honest, is a reality for some people. But his actual genius was holding on to the asset while development absolutely exploded around it. He turned empty land into a compounding cash machine. He put it on rent, generated a 2% yield, all while the underlying property value just skyrocketed.
By relentlessly reinvesting his earnings and that rental income back into more real estate, Rishabh amassed 4 properties by the time he hit 36. He built his wealth by focusing on earning an income while he slept. That easily allowed him to retire at 36, while his assets did all the heavy lifting. He completely uncoupled his time from his income. Section 4, the 7-3-2 compounding strategy. Next up, we have Akash, the systems investor. Now, while real estate requires some pretty heavy upfront capital, Akash took the most accessible and realistic path by maximizing his stock market returns through just pure, unadulterated discipline. Akash started out with a modest 25,000 rupee salary, but he was incredibly strict about the 50-30-20 rule. He allocated 50% to his needs, 30% to wants, and rigidly funneled that remaining 20%, which was 5,000 rupees, straight into a nifty 50 index fund SIP. After 5 years of that kind of discipline,
Those small, steady investments grew into 5 lakh rupees. He then took those early gains, combined them with his side hustle income, and started aggressively building a massive stock portfolio.
And this bar chart right here, this reveals the absolute magic of his core method, the 7-3-2 compounding strategy. This rule basically dictates that if you step up, meaning you increase your annual investment amount by 10% every single year, your compounding goes into overdrive. Look at how radically the timeline shrinks. It takes 7 years to hit your first 50 lakh, but the second 50 lakh, only 3 years, and that third 50 lakh takes just 2 years. By just bumping up his investment amount annually, Akash literally compressed decades of wealth building into just over a single
But
decade.
here's the thing. Akash was smart enough to know that a spreadsheet isn't reality unless you account for the silent wealth killer, which is inflation. Akash didn't just calculate his returns, he mathematically factored in a 6% inflation rate. He realized his original 1.5 core target just wouldn't be enough to actually retire on in 12 years' time. And that realization forced him to aggressively increase his monthly investment to 50,000 rupees, ensuring he secured a true inflation-proof early retirement by his late 30s.
Section 5, the Grand Reunion Reveal. Okay, let's move to the climax of our explainer. 13 years later, the paths of our spender and our real estate investor suddenly and dramatically collide. Remember that 90 lakh rupee home Shaurya bought at age 36 with that absolutely massive EMI? Well, when the paperwork finally cleared, Shaurya discovered the seller was none other than his old friend Rishabh. I mean, the irony, right? It is the ultimate reality check. The exact property Rishabh bought back in 2011 for just 15 lakhs is the exact same one Shaurya is now paying 90 lakhs for. It perfectly proves that the middle-class spender literally finances the investor's freedom. Shaurya's craving for a flashy lifestyle funded by debt is literally paying for Rishabh's early retirement. This iconic quote from Warren Buffett perfectly captures the vibe of their reunion. Shaurya, who is just exhausted, realizes he has 20 more years of grinding ahead of him just to pay off a house and keep up his inflated lifestyle. Meanwhile, Rishabh is completely financially free at 36, and Akash is just a few short years away from his own early retirement, all thanks to his massive compounding portfolio.
Section 6, Borrower versus Investor Mindset. Let's pull all of this together and look at the fundamental psychological gap between these personas. Like, why do people with the exact same starting point end up in entirely different universes? Just look at the stark contrast between these two mindsets. The middle-class spender views a higher salary as a license to borrow more money for instant gratification. They rely on the power of loans and EMIs, which means their paycheck is entirely spoken for before it even hits their bank account. But the wealthy investor persona? They view every single rupee of their salary as raw material to build self-sustaining assets. They harness the incredible power of compounding. They actively seek multiple income streams, and they completely detach their ego from what they own today, specifically so they can actually own their time tomorrow.
I want you to take a hard look at your own monthly expenses right now. Look at your lifestyle, look at your EMIs, look at your investments, and ask yourself this one final question. Are you building your own wealth, or are you simply handing over your paycheck to finance some investor's freedom? Because the financial path you choose today absolutely determines who gets to retire tomorrow. Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. I really hope it gave you some clarity on your own financial journey.